Welcome to Rogecast. I'm Sheen, and today we're looking at a sandwich layout style small form factor case. This is the 16-liter Raijintek Ophion, and it's a neat little mini ITX case. It will require a mini ITX motherboard like most small builds, but there's one pretty distinguishing trait about this case, and that is that it takes a full ATX power supply, which is really handy for those downsizing from a bigger build. Cable management is still a bit challenging with the longer ATX cables, but as you can see in this case, there's plenty of places where you can kind of route the cable along the edges to avoid anything bunching up and just use the included zip ties to secure them out of sight. Since it is a sandwich style case, it comes with a PCIe 3.0 riser cable to allow your graphics card to be vertically mounted on the other side of the case. A quick note is that if your motherboard is PCIe 4.0 compatible, generally I found it to be a good idea to force your motherboard into PCIe 3.0 for that slot. Otherwise, your graphics card may not display anything. You'll also have to be a little strategic about how you set that up though, because that usually requires that you install the card directly into the motherboard first. At this point in time, this is only a consideration for B550 and X570 AMD chipset motherboards, and since you don't typically have the option to run integrated graphics to help make that setting change in BIOS, it might be advisable to go ahead and set the motherboard up outside the case first, insert the graphics card, and make that setting change. So this case will take an air cooler up to 90 millimeters in height, and since that is a limitation in terms of the amount of cooling capacity, you would want to make sure you run an appropriate CPU. You can have two 25 millimeter, 120 millimeter fans up top, and additionally a slim 120 at the bottom underneath the motherboard side. Although I do think on this side of the case, it's a little bit more flexible just to not cram a fan in there and just use the space for cable management. It does get a little bit tight if you try to do that. Now, if you don't want to sacrifice either of these two top fans, you can mount one 2.5-inch SSD behind the front panel. And I've left this panel, the front panel, loose just so you can see. And you also have a front USB 3.0 Type A and Type C port. Now this Type C port isn't a standalone one, it's just twinned off of the same header. Overall, this case is really well built. It's a solid steel frame with nice brushed aluminum panels, and the finishing touch is really nice because you have this glass panel here, and this is offset from the surface of the case so that your cooler can still get good ventilation, and you can still have a nice view of the components inside. On the graphics card side, you have a pretty strict 2-slot limit and a 330 millimeter max length for the card. Now, I think this case would be a great gateway into the world of small form factor. It's not small to the point where it's difficult to build, but it is still a fun and well-ventilated compact case. Thanks for checking out on the review today, and please stick around to see some other user reviews right here on Rogecast.